Hello, welcome to the orchid garden. I want to talk to you today. I want to continue our conversation about orchids and their varieties and what the meaning of that might be in terms of how they came to be. I'm surrounded in this wonderful garden by beautiful orchid flowers, many different shapes and sizes and smells. Some smell like a sweet nectar. Others smell like decaying flesh. But you see how beautiful they are. They're all different, but they're all different. Over here, some more. The question becomes, we have an enormous variety of flowers in the orchid family. How did it come to be? Well, this book here said, this is the Holy Bible. And this book here says that all these flowers came to be via creation. They were all created like this by the Creator for the enjoyment of, primarily for the enjoyment of man. Now, I have a slightly different take on how all these different wonderful structures came to be. And I published a book on it entitled The Origin of Species. And this book gives an alternative explanation for how this came to be, all these flowers came to be. I want to remind you that in our last trip here, I talked about an orchid that was named after me. This is the orchid flower, the Star of Bethlehem. It has this extremely long nectary, and it's pollinated. I hypothesized there must be a pollinator that had a very long tongue that could extend to the bottom of the nectary where the sweet nectar was. And at 35 years after I hypothesized that, it was shown to be true. But this is a bizarre structure for someone to have created like this, because only one particular pollinator can basically reach the nectar at the bottom here. So it has a very specific pollinator, very specific flower structure. How did that come to be? Well, my book says that the wonderful thing about flowers is they evolve to ensure cross-fertilization. And in the process of cross-fertilization, sexual reproduction, you have enormous varieties created by crossovers of pieces of chromosomes. You have the mixing of males and female gametes. So you have an enormous variety of different structures emerging out of the cross-fertilization phenomena. And in the process of expressing enormous variety to a variety of ecological niches or a large variety of pollinators, you get these wonderful structures evolving. A pollinator likes the smell of this. Here's a plant that has a very unique structure. This is a duckbill. Unfortunately, yesterday evening, before my arrival here, a slug removed the remainder of the duckbill on this duckbill orchid. The duckbill extends about 4 to 5 inches away from the flower. This is one of those orchids that has a rancid smell like rotting flesh. It's pollinated by flies. But again, it's a very bizarre looking structure. The duckbill actually functions to catapult the fly into the sexual organs of the flower. I'm sorry I can't illustrate it because, again, the war between plants and animals was illustrated here. A slug got to my prize before I was able to show it. But my book says all these different structures came into being via varieties being expressed in the genotype and the environment, or the pollinators choosing various flowers to visit, feed on them, or mate on them, or deposit eggs on them. And in the process, these the gametes were spread from one plant to another distant plant. So you had not only the ability to mix up the gene pool, but also to disperse the fertilization event away from the flowers. So let me just say that this book here attempts to explain flowers via an act of creation, whereas this book here, the book that I wrote, attempts to demonstrate that there's no reason why these plants would have all these unique structures, like my duckbill, or like my long Star of Bethlehem nectary, or like many different types of landing platforms on an orchid. Those came about through long periods of variation and selection, different pollinators came into play, and over thousands, millions of generations, you had this wide variety of wonderful creatures. And if you extrapolate what I found in the orchids across every living form, you can see how this tremendous variety of living creatures could have come into being if there's immense amount of times available, and if the genotype varied over time, so that different environments would select different adaptations that are advantageous.